Hey, Sonograver here. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to some SuperCollider. I'm very happy to be doing another demo for you. Today we're going to be doing noise generation, in particular pink noise. Pink noise is a very calming effect that I would like to implement in my ambient music, for sleep and studying and relaxing and reading. So I had happened to come upon one of Eli Fieldsteele's more recent class lectures where toward the end of the segment, he was doing a pink noise demonstration involving like this ocean wave effect. So I'm going to show that to you and do a little bit of an explanation. Now, a couple of things. All the code that you see is more or less inspired by his lecture code. And the second thing is everything that you see is going to be, actually it is right now, available to you on Pastebin. So if you go to Pastebin, search Sound Engraver, you'll see a code specifically on pink noise as well as frequency modulation. But if you don't want to do the long route, I'll go ahead and put the link to this document in the description below. So let's go ahead and take it away. Now, for this code, you will be seeing functions, so the basic building blocks of our syntax. So no synth defs today, that'll probably be in the future, but this is all good too, to record and, run through a reverb effect or something like that. So we have our pink noise UGen just built for us right there. And this will be playing at audio rate, and we'll get to that in a moment. And we also have two arguments spelled out, the mul argument, which is effectively the amplitude argument, and I have it set to 0.2. This is a pretty nice, safe, more or less quiet amplitude for our noise generator. And then also our add argument, which is set at its default 0 right now. That will be brought to your attention in the near future with good reason. But with all that, let's go ahead and play this. So as you can see, of course, the word here, mono. This is a mono signal. If you are listening with headphones, you heard that signal come to your left ear, with your headphones. And then also the left channel 0 here. I'll go ahead and play that again for you guys who may be watching this video on the phone. And so, as per usual, I like to convert my mono signals to the stereophonic space, so we can do that using exclam2 as a syntactical shortcut. So just provided that, I put that in here inside the function. I've got a stink bug flying around my room that's kind of distracting me, but I will not be distracted. I refuse. Let's go ahead and run that. So you can see with the level meters and also our stethoscope that both lines here, both channel lines, were quite active. So just to play mono again, where we'll have the top channel line active and just channel 0 being sent the signal. And our stereophonic signal here. All well and good. Now, just to kind of break it down just a little bit, without the function and without, the play method, running this code or evaluating this code with the exclam2, we can see, let me bring this up. There we go. Oh, well, let me get this a little bit nicer looking. Bring this up for you. As good as it gets. So we have an array here. So of course with the brackets we have written out, or SuperCollider rather, has written out an array of 2 items. So 2 UGens, one on the left side, or the first of the index, or index value 0, and then index value 1, and then our second UGen. So we have a UGen for our left channel and our right channel, and if we do not evaluate with the exclam2, we've got, there we go. Just the UGen identified on its own. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and continue expanding our pink noise function. I'm just going to go ahead and get that code just a little bit bigger. looking at the stink bug on my wall. All right, so we have now a name for our function. And then we also have an argument, our mole argument, set at value 2. For now, that's our value to set it. But then, of course, when we have an argument, we can change it to different values in real time. And then we also have our variable, our signal variable. I usually name it sig. That's just been a habit. You can name your argument names and variable names anything you want, but just I would advise stay consistent because you tend to remember what you write better when it's always the same. So I don't think SuperCollider cares, but it's good for the coder or the programmer, or in my case, the musician. So let's go ahead and evaluate this function and set it to a global variable, the global variable x. It could be any global variable, so b, d, z, whatever. Just not s, not preferably s, because that's the server's variable. And we will release the synth in the span of 3 seconds, and then play it again. And pretty basic stuff, quite nice. Now for our ocean wave effect. We'll need to consider a few elements before we make this nice effect. The first is we need to add a control variable, a control oscillator that will set in motion, a specific motion for our pink noise audio signal. So what's the best candidate? What's the best representative of something smooth and wave-like as far as our oscillators? Well, it's really sine-os. And of course, I'll provide visuals later to prove it to you. Nah, you already know that. So that's really the best oscillator, or one of the best oscillators to use for ocean waves. The second thing to note is that for a control variable that doesn't take in a lot of input, basically we're going to have a nice, very slow sine-os. It's not going to be like 400 cycles per second. It's going to be even less than 1. So anything with that number, we don't need AR. We don't need something so, high quality. Also KR, which just does not take as much processing, is better for our CPU. It's less expensive. So kind of something to keep in mind. There's always exceptions to the rule, but KR for a control variable or control oscillator, and AR for an audio signal, and something that you would hear. So as we had AR for our pink noise, we're going to have KR for our sine-os, as you see. So pink noise, now it's expanding a little bit more. We're adding a frequency argument of 1/4, and now 1/4 actually translates into one wave traversing its full cycle in the course of 4 seconds. And we have our mol now set at 5, but we can also put mol as the name there, so we can change it in real time if we want to. We won't for this example, but that's for you to explore on your own. So we also have our variable signal as before, and then now this modulatory control variable. I call it mod, you can call it control, you can call it anything you want, but I'd be definitely, especially if you keep elaborating on your sense and functions, probably be as specific as possible. So something, this modulatory control effect, mod is fine. That was also on Eli Fieldsteel's lecture, so that's where I got the name. Anyway, that's an aside. And then basically we're adding mod, that sine-os at the control rate, with one wave traversing over the course of 4 seconds with the phase value of 0. Now, phase is going to be pretty important in this demo. And then, of course, our mol and our add. Now, just as an aside, you don't have to actually spell out these if you want to keep it at the default. So actually, the phase value is 0 by default. But I do want to spell this all out because we will be using different values for both phase and mol and add and stuff like that. So just be aware there. And of course, our pink noise signal with our exclam2 with the amplitude of 5, and we're going to scale it. So we're going to actually multiply the two variables together, and we should have this sound. So it's a good enough sound. It has that kind of wave sound, but actually if you listened to it, you'll notice, I believe if I'm interpreting it right, you'll notice that the wave was actually kind of going up and down in the course of 2 seconds. And that actually has to do with the phasing. So let's go ahead and compare this same function, but with different phase values. So let's go ahead and compare, or at least begin with our default value of 0. And if you want to see the difference in visuals between AR and KR, I have that for you in the syntax. Maybe this can be for your references for other projects, but just don't be phased if you see something smooth as opposed to something disjointed. Let me go ahead and show you. I don't want to talk about it. I want to show you. So we have our audio right here, and just so I don't lose my train of thought, let's go ahead and see KR. And obviously it's a little bit more disjointed, not as smooth. And if you compare the two with this syntax, you can see that the audio rate is indeed smoother. So this is going to be obviously more optimal with your audio signal, not as important for very slow moving control variables as you see here. But let's go ahead and talk about just the phase, default 0. And so the last sample that we heard was this wave kind of starting, it sounded like it started out of nothing, but it did start at 0 before rising to the crest at +1 and falling to the trough to -1. And so effectively, it's kind of hard to perceive it, but effectively we kind of had this, so we kind of had almost an initial start of noise. Whereas with an ocean effect, or at least a very calming effect, I would want something to just come out of nothing and rise to the crest before falling to the trough into nothing. You know, something rising before receding into nothing. And so this is not the phase motion that I would want. I would want something to start from the trough, or from right at that low point, and then go all the way to the crest before falling again. And that is going to be where you would hear that full wave going up and down in the span of 4 seconds. So where are we going to find that? Well, we got to compare phase values. So let's go ahead and do that. Now, actually, before recording this video, I did find that 2π, at least visually speaking, is the same as phase, the value 0 for phase. So there is that visual for you to compare. So mathematicians out there, is that true? I don't know. I'm not a mathematician. So is 2π the same as 0? Let's go ahead and move on. So really we won't, as far as I'm concerned, we won't really need 2π if it is the same as 0. Let's go ahead and compare pi. All right, so this is very interesting. It's kind of contrary to what we had with pi, or not, wait. I said that wrong. So this is pi, but it's contrary to what we had with the value 0 or 2π, where we are starting kind of at a little mid amplitude before dropping to the trough and then rising to the crest. So I don't want that either. So that's contrary motion to what we initially had, which is something I didn't want. So it's cool. You can definitely use it for something, but it's not what I want. So we do want the contrary of that, the rising to 1 before falling. And this is where 3π/2 comes in. And there we have it. We've got starting at the trough, rising up to the crest at +1 before falling back down to -1, crossing 0 in the process. That's what I want. And now let's go ahead and compare this with 0, compare this with the original value, the default value that we had for phase. So right off the bat, we can see, oh, okay, we're going to start with 3π/2. We're going to start with that the value nothing. I mean, perceptively, the sound is coming out of nothing into a swell before falling. Whereas before with the phase 0 on the left side, so you can see with this array, the left side is the top panel, the right side is the bottom panel. Kind of works as this stethoscope here. The bottom panel, 3 pi over 2, is the motion that I want. But before we even continue with that, let's see a couple of things. I don't really want the motion coming out of -1 to +1. Don't ask me why right now. I haven't really figured it out. Maybe I will for another video. But that was per Field Steel's recommendation. So in any case, I would like a motion coming from 0 to 1 back to 0. So let's go ahead and do that. What we can do is a couple of things. The first thing is we'll reduce the overall output by half. So the mole argument will be 0.5, which I think we already had it established like that anyway. So let's go ahead and plot that, and you can see, well. Instead of -1, we're approximately -0.5, rising up to 0.5. And so, of course, I want to go from 0 to 1. Well, let's just shift everything up by 0.5, and that's kind of where add comes in. Not kind of. It does, definitively does. Indubitably. I'm trying to sound smart while I'm talking about math stuff. So let's add 0.5 to our add argument there. And voila, we have this right here from 0 to 1, 0 to 1. And let's go ahead and apply this to our control variable. Oh, and actually I did also look at pi over 2, and this is the opposite motion. So here's pi over 2. And of course it's opposite in that it starts at the peak and descends to the trough, or crest to the trough. If you don't believe that's the opposite, I'll go ahead and show you right here. There we go. There we go. So we have the peak here, and then from the trough here. Beautiful, beautiful contrapuntal motion in SuperCollider. For a little bit. You don't want to keep doing opposite stuff in music, but well, I mean, and effectively in science, I think this effectively cancels out the signal. Awesome. Is that true? I don't know. I'm not seeing it right. It's late. It's past midnight, so forgive me if I'm mistaken there. But let's go ahead and add all of this to our function. So I just changed it to a decimal point. It doesn't really matter, a float number rather. I prefer that to the fractions. I like fractions for things like rhythm and meter, uses of meter in SuperCollider, but I just don't. I don't know why. To each his own. So again, this effectively translates into one wave over the course of 4 seconds. So I did leave this notice. I'm leaving for now the mole argument fixed at 5. Yeah, so instead of having it mole where I could set the value in real time to something else, I just left it at 5. And now I'm giving actual amplitude of the pink noise signal the name amp. So hopefully that didn't confuse you. But everything else more or less is the same. Of course, I changed the phase from 0 to the value of 3 pi over 2. And this should work. I'd like to add some kind of multi-channel expansion or some reverb effect to have it be very, very calming. So that's pretty cool. Now, before we go, just a couple of things. Now I'm going to make the code condensed without all of the comments, but I did give myself the go-ahead to kind of compare between pink noise and brown noise. I'll do a video comparing the different noise colors some other time, because there are huge differences. They're all very, very different. They have different implementation of spectrum. Very, very important. So between white noise, pink noise, brown noise, gray noise, and blue noise, it's all different. So this is just pink noise for now, but we will compare the different colors at another time. So same syntax, same function, just without the comments. Also, something great like this is a freak scope, but I will actually include this in another video. It's actually going to crowd the screen, so I don't want to. Well, let me. Okay, now I want to try it. Okay, there we go. Yeah, that's fine. It didn't crowd the screen. Oh, well, it disappeared. And I'm sure there's a way to put it up front, but whatever. We'll do it. I'll figure it out for another video. But anyway, before we adjourn, let's go ahead and compare the sound, the motion with the different phase values that we were talking about. So let's go ahead and do pi over 2. Oh, right there. And remember, this is the opposite cyclic motion of 3 pi over 2. So it's going to start at the peak of the amplitude before falling to value 0. So let's just remember to start that. I can imagine that being a pretty good effect. Like you have kind of a noise sweep and then bam, like that drop. Yeah. Yeah, SuperCollider doing some EDM. But that could be an effect where, you have this rising climax and then this effect, descending, and then maybe not waving continuously, but yeah, it could work. So we'll see. Yeah, I mean, I think you can generate some noise sweeps. I might even exploit that in I might explore that in SuperCollider. All right, let's continue. We've got phase 0. Actually, well, let's go ahead and play it again. Remember, it's gonna hopefully you'll be able to perceive it start at a kind of a middle amplitude before rising to the crest, before falling. Let's see. See that? So because now it started at the value 0.5, midpoint, not 0, but 0.5. Yeah, now I figured it out. Sorry, I was working some calculations in my head. I shouldn't admit this to you, but the wheels are turning now. Anyway, it started at 0.5 and then went up to 1 before dropping. And that's why you heard a like that. If excuse my poor representation of pink noise. That's actually more like blue noise. All right, so cool. I figured something out while recording this video. You're welcome. All right, and then pi. So if you remember pi, that visual with pi, we start at the middle but drop to the trough before rising to the crest. So, I mean, again, it could be an effect of some kind if that's what you're looking for musically. I think all of these phase values could be used for very good modes of expression, musically speaking. So I think that's it. Yep, that was pink noise. That was an ocean wave or simulation of some ocean wave. But I kind of want to elaborate this and make it really beautiful and maybe have a kind of a wave kind of swelling in the span of 20 seconds before receding or something. Something quite beautiful done through different reverb effects or delay effects or whatever. So that will be another thing to explore in the future. So thank you so much for listening. I hope you have enjoyed that and will experiment more in SuperCollider yourself. And until I see you next, keep producing and preserving that good music and sound experimentation that you love.